here at Cloud Foundry Summit in Boston, and today we have with us Devin from Cloud Foundry. I mean, I have known him for a very long time, but we never sat to have an interview. So this is the first time I'm going to talk to him. So Devin, can you quickly kind of introduce yourself? What do you do at Cloud Foundry?
Sure. So I'm the VP of Marketing for Cloud Foundry Foundation. I've been with the foundation for about 3 years, actually 3 years today. It's my 3-year anniversary. So,
is there a party tonight?
No, it's been a long week. Tonight, I'm going to bed early.
Okay.
I joined 3 years ago today. I was employee number 4 at the foundation, and I've been leading marketing pretty much that whole time.
So how has been the journey so far with Cloud Foundry?
You know, it's been really interesting. So when Cloud Foundry as a foundation first started, there was a lot of excitement, there was a lot of engagement. And then it was also kind of right around the time that Docker was very popular. And so people sort of didn't know what to do with which, and how they worked together and how they didn't, which presented an interesting challenge for us, but I think also an interesting challenge for Docker. Shortly after that, Kubernetes, of course, started to pick up steam. And so now we're in a place where we spent a lot of time at this show, as you may have noticed, talking about interoperability. And that's because we believe that these are very good complementary technologies. You may have seen Han Goldberg from Google talk about that on stage. Certainly you've seen Abby Kearns, our executive director, talk about that on stage. And so we're working closely with that community to build a consensus on what's best for the industry.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's the interesting thing is that Kubernetes is part of CNCF, which is part of Linux Foundation, and Cloud Foundry is also one of the collaborative projects. So
that's right.
It's actually you're all sitting under the same big giant umbrella.
Yeah, we're all part of the same big happy family.
Big happy family, and a lot of cross pollination is happening. You know, let's talk about your role in a sense that how are you helping the foundation?
Sure. So as the VP of Marketing, most of the outbound communications that you see come from me and people also that are on the marketing team. So. Work closely with a handful of folks, many of whom you know, of course.
Right.
And in addition to them, we work with a lot of outside contractors, but everything from our 2 events. So we do, of course, this US event here, and then we do one in Europe as well every year. Obviously, our web presence and all of the efforts around that. We have our Foundry, which is a digital marketplace that we launched last year in our European event. It's been about 6 months. It went from 600 to almost 5,000 services and offerings. So it's been really explosive growth, which is very exciting. And our job is really to evangelize all of that and sort of support the community in that way.
Right.
And that's really what our focus is. And it's tricky and it's interesting, but it's tricky because there's a lot of different companies that are competing with each other. And they're competing with each other to sell these technologies.
Right.
And our job is to work with all of them to help tell their story and also to support their efforts in Cloud Foundry and other open source projects as well.
Right. So, I mean, the interesting thing is that their developers, they come and work together, but their sales teams, they fight and compete in the market. And you have everybody in the mix. Microsoft is there, Google is there, you know. And if you look at beyond, Cloud Foundry, if you look at the larger Linux space, SUSE is there, Red Hat is there. So all these are like fierce competitors.
Yep.
But when their developers come, they just all work together, as you said, happy family. That part is good. So how challenging is it for you when you work with these competitors,
It is a challenge, but it's in their interest to find common ground as well.
Right.
And so finding a way to make that happen is the primary challenge and also honestly the best part of the job. A lot of times when people talk about open source technologies, they talk about it in the context of shared research and development, or they talk about it in the context of sort of everyone working together below the value line and then competing above the value line. I take a similar approach when it comes to co-marketing with all of our members. We try and build messaging and storylines that really land below the value line. So there's a lot of common ground that all these companies have. And if they can all agree to talk about certain things in a certain way and then build on top of that, so that's how they actually compete in the market, it benefits all of us. And it benefits them most of all because then we're doing some of their work. So it's kind of a win-win.
Right. But by this time, I think they do understand the value, so you don't have to struggle in showing them. That's why they're part of the foundation either way, right?
Yeah, for sure,
So
for
that's
sure.
crazy.
And they join for a lot of different reasons. It's
Right,
not just for the co-marketing.
exactly.
That's one of the pieces.
Right.
Yeah.
So, can you talk about the Cloud Foundry is part of the Linux Foundation. How do you work with other projects?
Yeah, so we work with a lot of other projects, and it varies. I think probably our closest relationship right now is with CNCF. Of course, Linux Foundation specifically, we're all Linux Foundation employees.
Right.
So technically we work closest with them because we are them.
But it's funny also, like you work with them, but you say that we work closely with CNCF, and then you have to clarify, no, we are actually employed, because you don't even realize that whose employee you are, right? In a way.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's a funny thing, right?
It's like a United States, you have different states, they have their own independence, but you're still part of the big nation.
That's right, because each of these projects have their own governance,
Right.
and they're run in different ways. They all have their own boards, they have their own priorities.
Right.
From a business perspective, from a technology perspective. It's very complicated. We're closest, I would say, with CNCF because there's the most common ground. We work with a lot of the same companies.
Cloud is in their name, so it has to
That's
be.
right, yeah, that's exactly right. And we also work with a lot of the same companies, so that comes into play too. We also work a lot with OpenStack, though, so it's not just Linux Foundation projects we work with. We have a lot of shared users with OpenStack. We have a lot of shared users with CNCF, of course, and frankly with Linux. So SUSE, you're wearing a SUSE shirt, is a great example. They announced this week their certified Cloud Foundry platform. It's called Cloud Application Platform. That involves Kubernetes, that involves Cloud Foundry, and also the entire stack is open source. So it's also got Linux and everything else. Right. So it's pretty cool.
So what role do you play in these kind of certification, or what SUSE announces today?
So we work with them in advance in a lot of ways. We worked with them on including them in our press release. We worked with them on promoting it. We worked with them on a shared media strategy. We made sure that we made noise about it on our website, and we, of course, moved them to the certified platform section of our Foundry. There's a lot of different touch points along the way. We actually worked with them a little bit on messaging too, because we work closely with the SUSE marketing team.
Right.
And they understand that we have been working in this space for a while, and so they were interested in our point of view, which was nice of them to include us.
Yeah, most people don't know, but SUSE is the oldest Linux company. Linux was announced in 1991. SUSE came into existence in 1992. Red Hat came in 1993.
Yeah, 25 years, right?
Yeah, no, it's more than 25 years. Yeah. Because I remember when it was 25th anniversary, then I met Linus Torvalds, and I did a 1 hour long interview, sat down with him. I talked to Nils Brockman, and so I interviewed all because that was a big,
That's funny.
That was a big,
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Jim also, Jim Zemlin. Usually he doesn't. So we sat down and we did a long interview to reflect on these 25 years.
Yeah.
Greg and that was the one of the best years.
I mean, it's a big deal. It if nothing else, it shows how ingrained open source is in our world.
Right.
Because Linux touches everything.
Yeah, and Linux has kind of made it easier for you guys. It laid all the foundation, not only to make companies realize that they can stay competitive by open sourcing their code or working together. At the same time, Linux also played a role in actually building the infrastructure that we all use today. Without Lamp Stack, we won't even have all those technologies that people take for granted. Sometimes, no offenses, but OpenStack people, I cover OpenStack a lot. So they say that we are growing faster than Linux. But the reason is because Linux did all the groundwork,
That's a great point. So I mean, and it's all the infrastructure,
right?
The Linux Foundation, and Linux Foundation has provided.
Without that,
including the structure that we use to do everything from send a press release, to build a website.
Right. I mean, the cloud won't even be a private cloud won't even be possible without the LAMP stack.
Yep, that's exactly right.
So it's like standing on the shoulders of giant.
Yep.
When we are talking about all these open source things, and suddenly we are talking to a marketing guy. What has open source and marketing has to do anything?
Well, so historically, they've not gotten along too well, right?
Yes. Money and open source? No.
Well, that too. I mean, the thing is that open source is always been a developer-led movement. And developers are reasonably resistant to marketing. And so I think one of the big lessons that I've learned over the years in this role and prior, frankly, is that good marketing isn't about trying to convince somebody to do something. It's about sharing information. Certainly tools like Twitter and just the internet in general, frankly, and different message boards and things like that have made it pretty easy for information sharing to happen in a pretty natural manner. But things still get missed. And I believe that...
And just one thing, Twitter and everything also runs on Linux and open source.
Yeah, 100%. Everything does, right?
Yes, yeah.
But I believe that one of the big things that I've learned that I think is really important is the job of marketing in open source matters, but it matters only in as much as we're there to make sure that people are connecting and learning the things they need to learn to do the job that they need to do and do it well, and continue to build and grow these communities and ecosystems.
Right. I mean, I think sales and marketing are two different, totally different departments in my opinion, because even if you're writing good code, if you're not able to send the right message, what this code does, or if you cannot, you will fail to build a community around it.
Yep.
So people kind of don't understand the term very well, but I think most successful open source communities are also the ones which have very good marketing. I was talking to Katie community a few weeks ago because they got $200,000 from Pineapple Foundation. So they said, our weakness is marketing, but we also we have limited resources, that how much money we should invest in marketing versus code development or documentation. So their hands are tied. If they had resources, they would very much like to do that. Because of that, they don't have mind share.
Yeah.
So
it's tricky. It's tricky, and it's sort of, then they circle the wrong direction.
Right.
And, we consider our events to be community events, but I run them, and I work with my team to make sure that they happen and that they grow and that the right people arrive and that we have good technical talks for the developers who attend and the people who do operations that attend and the business people that attend. And the reason for that is that community is what drives open source. Right. And so I believe that when it comes to open source, marketing is largely about stewardship of that community. Right. And helping to move things forward and largely getting out of the way.
I mean, you're also part of the community.
Sure, of course I am. Of course I am.
Everybody, because whoever is the stakeholder becomes the part. There is no such thing as this is the community and everybody is out of that.
No, of course not.
Of
course not.
You're sort of part of the community driving the things.
Yeah, and we're a very inclusive community. Yeah. So we believe that, like, you're a part of the community. We've known you a long time. You have covered this technology. You know many people in this community very well, and we very much consider you part of the community too. Like, for us, it's about ensuring that the right voices are connecting, the right people are connecting, and then, in my case, getting out of the way. If I have something to contribute to the conversation, awesome. Right. But if I don't, I'd love to sit, I'd love to listen to you talk, and I'd love to learn.
Right. I was talking to Jim Zemlin once again, and he said, what community? Because there can be smaller communities within big community.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you sometimes when people say, hey, Linux community, but you have to define. So everybody who's playing a role is part of the community.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we talked about community. We talked about your role as marketing. What is the big challenge that you face, from your position that you're like, oh, I have to still crack that nut?
Yeah, so I think we talked a little bit about that intersection between Kubernetes and Cloud Foundry. I think that in the cloud middleware space, it's very complicated. And there's a lot of confusion around who does what, how it works, what it means, why it matters, who needs to use what. And so I think that the big push for us and the thing that we really need to work on this year is providing clarity around that, both us and our members. And this is a good example of helping to refine a conversation and then get the right people having that conversation. And that's really all our goal is with these types of things. We just want to get in front of the confusion, clarify, and get everybody where they need to be so that they understand what's happening and so that they understand which technologies are going to solve their problems. Because sometimes it will be Cloud Foundry, sometimes it will be application runtime, sometimes it won't. Sometimes it'll be Kubernetes, sometimes it won't. Sometimes they actually don't need a new technology for that old workload, and that's okay. I think helping to help, this is probably going to be more than this year's challenge, but helping to define that problem make it clear how to solve it, for what problems and what directions and what size of company, and sort of ease that pain is our big challenge, probably going forward, but definitely for the next year.
Right. So with this conference, when you met a lot, I mean, you do interact with a lot of community members, but suddenly you have a lot of. So when you meet all these people here, do you come across like, oh, these people are facing these kind of problems, or so? What do you gain from this conference, other than the standard, when you do conferences? But what do you personally gain from these conferences?
Yeah, so I mentioned that I'm always very tired at the end of the conference.
Yes.
It's because I talk to people the whole time. Our conference is about half end users, typically from very large Fortune 500 type companies, and about half developers. So I'm tired, but I'm also energized because I walk away and I really learn. I learn more about the challenges that our users are facing. I hosted a panel yesterday with I think 4 or 5 different end users from very large companies. And they all talked about a lot of the challenges that they were facing, and it's just fascinating to hear these challenges and where the common ground lies and how they're solving it. But then at the same time, I hear from developers about like, hey, here's this thing we're trying to do, this really interesting integration, and here's the tricky point for that, and here's how we're going to solve it, and here's how we're going to move forward. And so I also get to learn more about how the technology works, because I'm not a technologist. I have a journalism degree. And so being able to learn more about how these technologies work, learn more about the market, and then also learn more about how users are facing and solving these challenges is it's a really exciting thing for me, and it really helps me to grow and be better at my job too.
Right. So what did you learn from this conference this year?
Oh man, I learned so much from this conference. I think probably the big thing that I learned is that we're right, because we've done a lot of research, we've spent a lot of time thinking about it over the last few months. We're right that we need to figure out, it's really important to our community to provide that clarity I was talking about earlier, because there is a lot of market confusion. And so we need to work with our members and work with our community to be really clear on how different technologies are solving different problems. That it's become clear that us having an opinion on that and our members having an opinion on that is going to be really, really important. And
what because I'm sure once the conference is over, you guys will start looking at the next conference.
Yes.
So yes. What are the things? I mean, you mentioned some challenges that you want to solve. So what? I mean, we are still in this conference, so we should not be talking about the next conference.
Oh, I'm already on to the next one too.
So what's going to be the?
So there's a bunch of projects that are going to be contributed to the Cloud Foundry Foundation. And I think pretty soon they'll move into incubation.
Yeah, I know. I know about them. I cannot talk about that too, but I know about them. Yeah.
So no specific details right now, but I expect they'll be happening really soon.
Yeah, from a very big player.
From 3 very big players, including one that may or may not be on your shirt. And very interesting work. And so when that moves into the foundation, we're gonna try and really talk about that a lot, because I think it'll help provide some of that clarity I was talking about. Right. And so at our next summit, I suspect we're gonna probably be at a place where we can actually demo some of these technologies on the main stage, show the direction we're going, and make some clear statements about what the future of the project is. I'm pretty excited about that opportunity.
As these projects are coming in, will they become part of the Cloud Foundry, or they will remain a separate project? Because one of the problems that OpenStack Foundation faced, and Kubernetes already dealt with it, that they have a Kubernetes core, and then everything is additional on top of. So will you be doing the same model with Cloud Foundry, or will it separate? Or is it too technical question?
Well, no, it's not too technical of a question, but it's a very complicated answer. So I believe that what will likely happen is that it will be part of the foundations, and so it will be part of the project.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
But we're part of the projects that I can't talk about too specifically.
Okay.
We're moving toward composability.
Okay.
And flexibility, and being able to choose certain parts to do what you want to do. There's a certain piece of the code base that's going to need to remain in place.
Okay.
Because it's really important that developers and operators have standard experience. That's the power of our certification. And so we can't let that slip.
Right.
But there's going to be some optionality built in, most likely, provided these projects are taken in. And it seems like a foregone conclusion, but I just don't want to speak out of turn until it's
I totally understand.
So that composability is going to sort of answer that concern, I think.
Yeah, that's totally.
But at the same time, provide the consistency that is very, very important to all the end users that we have using Cloud Foundry today.
Right. I think we talked about some broad topic. Is there something else that is very close to your heart and you want to talk about it? Oh, yes, there is, which I really appreciate. On the first day when Abby was there on the stage, there were 3 women and 2 men. So diversity is really strong. I love, even there was few months ago, there was a video about Cloud Foundry that was a woman holding a drill machine, or, I think, so that was, encouraging to see. So what do you say? Where is this influence toward diversity coming in at Cloud Foundry?
Well, certainly we all feel strongly about that. We're a female-led organization, which is unfortunately very rare in technology.
Very rare.
We're largely female. We're a team of 12 people, and I think
Right.
9 of them are women. And 9 of us are women. But for me, I think one of the things that Abby often says is you can't be what you can't see. And so it's incredibly important for us to raise up and make visible all of the women who are doing great work in our community and in technology at large as much as we possibly can, and also other underrepresented minorities as well. And as a white male, I think it's my responsibility, oftentimes, truthfully, just to step out of the way. I want the people around me, I want the women around me, I want the underrepresented minorities in general around me to be able to step up and show what they can do. Because there's a long history of people like me being in front when they don't need to be. And so I try really hard to do my part, just to sort of be out of the way sometimes.
Right.
Often, in fact. And we believe strongly that, half of the world is women. So half of our leadership should be women. Half of the people working on our projects should be women. And we're not there yet.
Yeah,
but it's important to us, and we're continuing to work on it.
And today there is also a preview of a movie, a film.
Yes, the Chasing Grace project. So I was lucky enough. So we're a sponsor of the project,
Right.
And I was lucky enough to go to a screening of it when Jennifer Clower, who's the filmmaker, premiered it in Portland a few weeks ago.
Right. She's a very good friend. So yeah.
Yeah, I know you know Jennifer well. Yeah, she's the best. She is.
Yes. So, but that's also part of a luncheon that you guys have been doing for a couple of years.
We have, the entire time we have had our event, we've done a diversity luncheon.
Yes.
They've gotten bigger. They've gotten more
So what do you do
complicated.
at that diversity luncheon?
It varies. So it changes year to year. This year, we're going to actually screen Jennifer's film.
Yes.
Which we're excited about. I think it's only the 3rd screening that's happened yet, so we're lucky to get it early. One of the benefits of sponsorship, I suppose, but really, we're very lucky that she was able to join us. And then her and Abby are going to sit down and talk about. So the film is focused on the gender pay gap, which is one of the many problems that we face.
I wrote a story about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to have them sit down after the film is complete and talk about that problem and possible solutions. And Abby and Jennifer obviously are both very well versed in one, the problem, and 2, some possible solutions.
Right.
I'm sure it'll also open up to the audience for questions and stuff too. So I'm actually going there right after this. I'm really excited.
Yeah, me too. Anyway, it was nice talking to you today, and of course, we'll see you again at the future event.
Yes, sir.
And this is my first interview with you, but I'll be doing a lot of follow-ups to keep up with you what's going on there.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Swap. Always a pleasure.